Swap. There we go. All right. Bit of a mistake there, but here we are. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is DreamHack 2014. This is DreamHack Summer, of course, and sadly I am solo casting now at this point. But we'll see how this match goes. I think this will be one of the more evenly matched ones. It should be a pretty good series, and it's a TvT, one of my favorite matchups on our hand. So without further ado, spawning here in the bottom left corner of Overgrowth, it is the blue Terran player from Millennium, Marinelord. His opponent at the top right, not to be underestimated, from Evil Geniuses. It's the red Terran, Demuslim. So one thing Demuslim's doing right off the bat that I find interesting is, of course, the supply depot placement. There's pros, there's cons to doing the whole thing at the ramp. You build it closer to your command center, you mine a little bit faster, so your factory time is a little bit sooner, thus your Banshee's out a little bit quicker, and all these wonderful timing things end up happening from the slightest mineral increase, or so players want you to think. Realistically, not that big of a deal. I kind of feel that the amount of 1-1-1 builds you're seeing come out in full force, well, it's a gas first, Jesus, has really been problematic. This is why we see Marinelord instead building with the wall off at the front of his ramp in mind. Is no matter what Demuslim drops him with, he just doesn't want 4 extra Hellions running up his ramp. So if you just raise the depots, you're good to go. Now Demuslim, having taken this very, very early gas, to me just says like he wants to go for the faster factory. This could lead towards possibly getting out a faster Banshee, although I don't know if that would necessarily be the case. Again, Banshees have kind of fallen out of favor. They're still good, and some players can make fantastic use of them, but they're no longer the automatic win machines that they used to be. The other thing, too, for Marinelord, once he gets over here to scout with the SCV, the big thing he needs to do is click on that gas and check. Because when you swing by the base, guys, you're going to see right away, wow, that's already 100 plus gas out of there. Typically, this should barely be like 100 gas taken from the refinery. We'll see if he actually clicks in. Look for the blue dots around the refinery. That's how you can tell if they click on it or not. He might just be scouting for the time being. Seeing this, though, I mean, it doesn't look too odd just to the naked eye, because your refinery will typically be done by the time you get in here for the scout. The barracks just timed out pretty perfectly, and Demuslim throws down a very fast factory. No Reapers whatsoever, just going straight to this. It only gets greedier than this if you don't build anything out of the barracks, but he is pumping out the Marines, so this will drive Marinelord back home, but also, you know, allow him to get a little bit of defense. If Reapers were to come, you're going to need 1 or 2 Marines, a little bit of buffer with maybe pulling an SCV to hold them off. But a reactor comes down pretty quick here for Marinelord. However, I don't know if he's... Oh, is he going to do the poke? No, I thought he was going to do the poke for a sec with the Marines moving out, but looks like he's just going to take the watchtowers for the time being. Hey, that's where we're casting. That's where we're casting. DreamHack Open. But goes for the expansion. This is a build that's not too bad. It can definitely slingshot you ahead pretty heavily, providing you don't take a lot of worker losses. Demuslim, though, is going for that cloaked Banshee as fast as humanly possible, guys. I can't stress this. With the gas first, you get this out so much sooner, so much faster than you otherwise normally would. Now, if this is going to be the case, I mean, I don't see him rushing out a Raven. There's an old, like, Beastie Cutie all-in build that involves, like, a Raven first into, like, siege tanks. This is not a map for that. So we're probably not going to see if he can come down to the factory. He'll just swap this over, go for the Banshee. Now, Banshees can get work done. If you're good with control, even Marines will always struggle to deal with you. If you guys have played StarCraft Master, or whatever the tutorials were called, you can also learn that the Banshee can, technically in a perfect situation, out-micro Marines even while scanned. Although, let's be honest, between latency, player error, and being human, that's rarely the case. So these first couple Marines of the Watchtower are going to be quite nice. They'll scout the Banshee coming, providing they don't move out too soon. They might die, so you may have to pull a couple back, but as long as Marinelord goes for a Viking first himself, you should be okay. We may see actually the... No second gas, so yeah, we're not going to see the Raven first. Well, he could go for the Raven first, but we'll have to save up for quite a bit of time. We'll see what he ends up doing here. I imagine it's just going to be the Viking. It's the most economically sound. Not to mention you can always go for the later Banshee. If you guys saw that sick show match for Zombie Grub and myself, you'll know just how effective that late Banshee can be. But for Demuslim, of course, he's going to have nothing too much to worry about. Comes to the Watchtower, though. This is revealed pretty quickly. Marinelord confirming his suspicions. Doesn't quite catch the Banshee. Demuslim actually really fast with his reaction time. Had he just kind of moved on and ignored it, that would have died very quickly to some decently controlled Marines. So, giving a bit of chase. Trying to poke and do a little bit more damage. Taking a bit of pepper outside the base, not a fun thing to do. His cloak is 13 seconds from finishing on the way. But he's picking up quite a few Marines with this. Now, this isn't a fantastic start because, you know, every Marine dead could have otherwise have been an SCV. Burns a scan, but he gets the Banshee. Really well handled there by Marinelord. These Hellions coming up the ramp, however, will not be so lucky. They'll meet their fate on top of a bunch of Marines. One goes down, and no Marines die. We get another Banshee heading out across the map. Should be okay. We'll see if this one actually gets a little bit more damage done. Of course, we do have missile turrets down in the mineral lines for Marinelord, so the Banshee's damage is somewhat limited. A lot of the times, of course, you can squeeze around the missile turret and find the sweet spots outside of it, but the number one thing a missile turret does is it provides detection much longer than its attack range. So the Viking can take care of the Banshee even if the turret's not in range, as we see kind of starting to happen here. Back outside the Muslim's base, though, still 3 Hellions. Something he does have to be careful about. If he sends an SCV out, it dies. If he clumps up the Marines for a second, they will also die. He's actually just going to go hammer away at the depot. It's a bit of an odd choice. This is another Banshee. Not so hot here for Demuslim. But, you know, there's another really fantastic Terran player I've cast before firsthand that also doesn't have fantastic Banshees, and that is Innovation in pretty much the entirety of the Acer Team Straight Cup Season 2. So, I mean, you really don't have to do a lot of damage with the Banshees. They just give you the opportunity to get ahead. It's not like you cut workers. Yes, you get a little bit greedier with the build with the Muslim had employed here, but it's not the end of the game, and he's certainly not out of the tournament because, oh my god, the Banshees didn't kill SCVs. No, he's perfectly fine. In fact, push across the map might just be a little too bold. He will have the assistance of the Raven. This will give him detection for the Banshees, but also auto turns. Poor awkward Marines dying in a blaze of glory. Sorry, guys. Actually, without that many Marines on the ground, he's got to be careful because now this Viking could be a real big problem. Tank even going to fall back. This is starting to fall apart pretty quickly for Demuslim. His auto turret will buy him just that little bit of extra time necessary to try and retreat. Of course, if the Marine stops to attack, it dies to the Hellions. Yep. But the Raven's almost home. Problem is, a lot of these Marines at home almost dead, and a couple more volleys will finish it off. Nice auto turret timing though. Muslim just barely with enough energy to throw that down. The most wonderful thing about the auto turret, guys, and again, unless you've used this yourself, you don't understand the magnificence of it. It does a decent amount of damage. It has a very large health pool. It's armored in a building, but it's, oh my god, the highest aggro thing in the game. Anything nearby is going to auto attack an auto turret before anything else. Ultralisk, Thors, tanks, not a threat because they shoot the auto turrets. But Marinelord's got the air control for the time being. Demuslim actually has no anti-air. He could probably actually throw down an auto turret here. Yep, in the SCV line. Maybe even land the 2 Vikings if he's feeling really ballsy. But this is going to be a bit of a nuisance to deal with. Doesn't have enough energy for his own auto turret. If Marinelord did that, he probably could have sent off that Raven for free. But auto turrets, guys, as I said, not to be underestimated. Good control though out of Demuslim. Pulls back the weakened Marines. He's got a pretty nice siege line set up here on the front of his base, and the 3rd command starting to finish up in a moment's time. Same kind of goes for Marinelord though. We see a lot of similar production. The only difference is Marinelord going towards that mech sort of build, and Demuslim sticking with what looks to be bio for the time being. Of course, it's not difficult to swap in TvT. I don't know what the dynamic of it is, but every other matchup, impossible to tech swap. You can't go bio into mech. Impossible. Sometimes with Zerg, maybe a little bit with a blend, but TvT seems to be the only match you can do that kind of comfortably, as long as you got a couple siege tanks on the 3rd base. But the Muslim chases everything out of his main for now. Would like to... Okay, there we go. He actually does have medevacs up. Would love to see these heal some of these Marines. I mean, this is one-shot range. This is terrible. These guys have earned a better life than this, Demuslim. You come from Britain, not America. You should have healthcare, right? Political joke. Political joke on hour 12 of casting. Marinelord coming back home with the Hellions for the time being. Of course, let's not forget these can transform into Hellbats. One of the biggest dynamics you're going to need against most Terran players playing bio are those Hellbats, or the buffer. Not only can they soak tank hits fantastically, if they get on top of the Marines and the Marauders, they die. And let's not forget these are Blue Flame. But with the light armor value of them, and the fact that they have so much health, they're really good at just pushing into bio. The Muslim going to poke forward here just a little bit. Scan goes down from Marinelord, so he sees this army exactly where it is. A bit awkward for Demuslim, of course. Wanted to push there, but now the siege tanks are sieged, and push into siege tanks and blue flame anything is not a lot of fun. He does have the potential to go for drops. There are quite a few Vikings on this side. He'd be much better off just boosting through the turrets, quite frankly, but Would absolutely lose the medevacs in the process. Right side of the field, he's got a Raven wrapping around the back. This is actually really cool if he does auto turrets. Once again, I would love it. You just don't see this sort of harass enough, but this will awkwardly bump into the medevac. So signal to the Muslim, he needs to leave a couple units at home on the rally, but he's actually so supply blocked. He's not going to have anything up by the time this medevac comes, and oh my god, I think he missed it. I think they barely passed each other. I think the Muslim did not see it. Yeah, the barracks are still rallied so far away. So this is going to get in here with Blue Flame Hellbats, guys. This is going to roast the SCVs alive. Let's not forget, a good chunk of these are already low from the auto turret harass the Muslim had thrown down earlier. A silly little thing that is going to start to perhaps pay off here in the late game. The Sky Barge. Come on, dude, drop him. There we go. Of course, what we see there is a really fantastic way to deal with Hellbats, guys. Concussive shells. Concussive shells. Hellbats move slow enough as is. If you can slow them down a little bit more, so much the sweeter. Of course, one of the really nice things too is with this overlay, we can see 8 SCVs did die in that engagement. But on top of this, guys, concussive shells, well, great. Marauders also don't take a lot of damage from those Hellbats. They don't suffer from the bonus like Marines do. So you can have a couple of those peppered in their front line, and it's actually going to be really effective to soak the Hellbat hits. But Marinelord looking to go for another Hellbat drop. I guess keep using the first one for a distraction, but there's turrets there. Alright, top left map. Going to start wrapping around here in a moment. Hopefully can get a bit of damage done here. I mean, the turrets are up. This will deter the drops from sticking around and healing up those Hellbats for too long, but of course once they're in the mineral line, it's kind of mission accomplished. Gets a good chunk of kills here. Gonna lose the Hellbats for it, but up to 12 workers killed now, opposed to the 0 he had earlier. The Muslim's still kind of teetering on the edge of the scan. Looks like he's gonna go for it. Marinelord could boost in here. There's really not a lot covering those tanks. He knows it. Point defense drone went down to soak those Marauder hits, and he will break the tank line. Without the tanks, of course, there's not a whole lot of power into Muslim's army, so he may have to disengage, but his own tanks are starting to rally to the front lines. He's got a lot of Marauders in this mix. And it's not looking too good here for the fight on Marinelord's side. Those Hellbats still yet to come out of the medevacs, so it's way too late, but there's so many tanks up here for Marinelord. There's just no way for the Muslim to continue pushing. In fact, beaten back once again, gonna lose a couple of the medevacs to those Vikings. Granted, now he's on 4 bases behind this. It's one of those attack and expand type move slash mantras, but Marinelord's not really gonna be able to take a head-on fight anytime soon. The army supply may look, actually, I was going to say similar, but it's not. 101 versus 62. This tank count has snowballed just a wee bit, just a wee smidgen. The Muslim's going to be forced to either go for the base rate or come back home and defend. With the Vikings camping on top of this, it's not like you can drop to break the tanks, and if the tanks are in siege, you don't want to drop on them anyways. Unsieged siege DPS from a tank? Not too shabby. Well, looks like the Muslim will turn around to try to walk back home. We'll see if he gets here in time. Marinelord still with those drops ready and primed and prepped to go for drops on top of the tanks of his opponent, but there are no siege tanks to find, and the Muslim finds himself actually in a lot of trouble. I like this drop towards the back end, starts picking off some of the tanks. If he can break this, that'll be nice. Still lost his third though. Difference being, because he took a fourth, he actually has recovery. He did not lose that many SCVs to that attack. He did pull them out of there pretty swiftly, so not too bad of a hold for the Muslim. I wouldn't say that puts him ahead by any stretch of the imagination, but with his upgrades, he's looking pretty darn good. Now level 3 hasn't begun just yet, level 2 only just finished, but we'll probably see that coming out in a moment's time. What good is having 50 Marines if they all just tickle and bounce off, or the bullets rather, tickle and bounce off of tanks? Oh, I do not like this the Muslim. He's poking around and prodding, and that's okay with scouting information, but he doesn't really have any Vikings to cover the tanks, he doesn't have any Banshees to break his opponent's tanks, and he certainly doesn't have a tank count of his own to actually fight other tanks. Not going to go as far as to say the Muslim's army looks inferior. I do think in a perfect scenario, in a perfect world, if he gets good engagement at the right angle, he can wipe Marinelord's face to the floor, but that's not going to be easy. Push it down here to the bottom right. Might get a little bit dicey. Ooh, I didn't even catch that. What am I in? Nicely handled. I like that mentality there too. It's not that he saw anything down there from Marinelord. It's that the Muslim says, if I'm cheeky enough to take my own top left base, he'd probably take his own bottom right. But we got scans starting to go off a little more frequently. Both players trying to spot areas of the map they can't see. And Demuslim, he might not have the tank production of Marinelord, but Marinelord doesn't really have a lot of raw DPS the same way Marauders work in this game. As we see, they can take down tanks potentially very, very fast, but catching from the back end is not going to be easy. Now, if he does get a pre-siege, the Muslim should be able to hold this. That last hold, I wouldn't go as far as called a miracle hold, but man, was that not easy. Marauders getting a point defense drone. We got some Hellbats dropping into the army here as well. And of course, one of the most dangerous things is to let those into the heart of your army. You need to cut away from them. You need to make sure you don't take that splash damage. And Marinelord, quite frankly, is applying more and more pressure. Now, don't forget, guys, he already killed this base once. We'll see if he can knock it down a third time. Or, sorry, a second time. At the very minimum, force a lift, of course, but the whole army lifted into this. Bit of a doom drop goes off. A couple of the medevacs go down. One of them certainly died with a full cargo load, but Demuslim, he's going to break him. Marinelord's got nothing left on the ground. This will send the Hellions back, or rather the Vikings back, sorry, as well as that Raven, so reclaims his half of the map. And has Marinelord... Okay, so he knows 100% about this top left corner base. It makes a lot of sense not to charge in here. If you charge in with your siege tanks, you always risk getting sieged up over here or cornered in from the behind, as we've seen so many times frequently happen. So while that corner base looks like a big threat, it's a huge risk to actually try and take it out. Double Banshee still coming out of here for Demuslim. Or sorry, for Marinelord. Reading the production tab wrong there. Wondering if these guys are good enough for battlecruisers, is the way it works. Battlecruisers are kind of terrible, awful units, and you should never just make battlecruisers on their own or for the sake of making battlecruisers. You have to have a plan with them. You have to have a precise amount in your mind, 3 to 5, make mass Vikings around them, and just rule the skies with some Ravens on top. But if it's just going to be like 1 or 2 to try and clear this army out, you're way better off making like 2 or 3 Banshees. They're faster, they're more maneuverable, their DPS is just as high, if not better. Downside, can't shoot up. But that's siege fire out of both players. Everything is catching fire. A couple siege missiles are going to go down. One, precisely. Gets the job done. Now Demuslim, once again on the back burner, has to be a bit careful here. He will get a nice siege shot off here to start the fight, but he knows he can't leave that for too long, so the Marauders forced forward. Focus firing down the tanks, kind of ignoring some of the Hellbats, but as they move in, of course, they're forced to deal with them, and there's no anti-air remaining, no way to deal with the Vikings, no way to deal with the Banshee, and this is looking suddenly very grim for Demuslim. Not because of his army supply, but because of his lack of minerals. Look at that count, guys. He just has nothing to work with right now. Even though he mules the newly freshly formed command center in the top left corner of the map, Planetary Fortress, of course, he's not looking to be in much better of a spot. Not until he gets the supply count up, and sadly, to get that supply count up, it's more about knocking your opponents down. He's not taking the most effective engagements. Demuslim will clear out some of the tanks, but this looks like this might just begin right here. This is getting broken. GG.